All right, you're tuning into Financial Fitness Northwest live on 1150 KKNW, where we help you navigate the mortgage and real estate market with expert advice from knowledgeable and trustworthy industry professionals, which today is the Riley Johnson team.
We are very trustworthy.
And knowledgeable.
Absolutely.
Yes. So to give you a little background about us and our mortgage experience, Patricia and I have a combined 22 years experience in lending. We're both senior loan officers at Caliber Home Loans. We have a consultative approach to lending. So we like to recognize our clients' needs first and find out the right mortgage solution and educate them throughout the process, which is far more complicated than it was just a few years ago. So we really, really, truly love helping people, whether you're a first-time home buyer, a move-up buyer, or purchasing your dream home. We've had the privilege to work with thousands of families to assist them in the financing of their home purchase or refinance. So we did a part one of this a few weeks ago, we covered basically what to know when choosing a lender, an agent, the pre-approval process, and do's and don'ts. Right?
Pretty much, yeah. We kind of got you to the point of, being pre-approved and
ready to house shop.
But you're probably sitting out there waiting for part two because
you've
now
been
you're
tuning in every week, just wondering, when are we going to...
What do we do next? Yeah.
Sarah, Patricia, tell me. I'm sitting on pins and needles. Well, we did cover a little bit. We started to get into inspection versus appraisal, which is kind of the next step once you're under contract. So let's recap that a little bit.
Let's recap that. So every agent out there would most likely recommend that you get an inspection. And the inspection is going to be what you personally, as the home buyer, pay for and have done for your own comfort, just to make sure that there are not any hidden issues with the home that you're considering buying.
Right.
And, the inspector goes in and he or she is going to look at everything from the roof to the crawl space and everything in between to really make sure that your property is sound and there aren't any, you don't want to buy a money pit, right? So.
Yeah. So, so you're under contract. You signed around. The first step is you have your inspection done. A lot of times you'll do that before you're under contract, a pre-inspection, to make your offer more competitive. That way you can waive the inspection. That happens a lot in this market, and your agent can explain that to you more. But the inspection has nothing to do with lending.
So that's nothing to do with lending.
That's just for your peace of mind. Then after you've got your inspection back and you've decided, yes, we're still going to buy this house, then we would order the appraisal, which assesses the value of the home.
Exactly. Your lender is going to order the appraisal. That is not something you do. You order the inspection for yourself. The lender orders the appraisal for you and them, and that's what dictates the amount of money they're going to give you. That is the collateral that you are borrowing against, and your appraisal is going to be dependent on recent sales in a similar geographic area of similar size and age to the type of property that you are purchasing.
Right. And so the appraisal is a part of your closing costs. And once let's go through like the process, and then we can touch on like fees and just give you a really clear picture. So you're under contract, you've had your inspection done, all looks good, you order the appraisal, and what is the next step once you send your contract over to the lender that's going to happen?
You do pay for the appraisal up front, too. Just want to note that.
Right, you do. But it's part of your closing costs.
It is. It will show as a credit on your final statement, but you do pay for that up front.
So you're going to get your whole entire application will be updated per the contract. You're going to receive all your disclosures, like some 40 pages, electronically that you're going to e-sign.
If you're working with Caliber, that's how we do it.
Yeah, that is how we do it. Some other lenders might make you print out all 42 pages and sign them.
And scan them, and then you don't have a scanner, and then
right.
What do you do?
You got to fax them. Who has a fax? So, yeah, Caliber is really the best. So you're going to get your entire application package, your initial disclosures that you'll sign. So that's step one. Then you're also, at that point, because you're under contract, you can lock your loan. So that's something that you want to talk to your lender about. Interest rates are generally based on a 30-day lock, which is generally the amount of time your contract is through, is about 30 days, if not less in this market, because people are making competitive offers.
Right.
So as soon as you're under contract, that's the time to start talking about locking your rate.
It is. And it's a good time. I mean, you should really, on a 30-day close or less, there's not a lot of time. I mean, if you're like a gambler and you're thinking, I want to play the market and see if the rate gets better or worse, I always like to tell people, here's the rate today, here's the payment, you feel comfortable with that, just lock it in, because it's always a lot more painful to find out that you have to lock at a higher rate and make a higher payment than you would have if you just did it.
Right. And it protects you from the rate going up. If the rates went down significantly, you could float down one time. That's with Caliber. That's how we work. But really, the market's not fluctuating that enormously anyways. So you lock your rate in, your appraisal's ordered, and then when you get this whole application with all your disclosures from your lender, they're going to have all these numbers in there. And so I think it's good to go through. I mean, we do this at pre-approval, but go through all the numbers so that you understand what you're looking at and what your fees are. So let's talk about that. The numbers that a lender has control over, the cost that we have control over is the rate, the cost of the rate, if a lender charges an origination fee or not, and then what they charge to underwrite or process your loan.
Typically just one fee. There's really just one fee that your lender is charging for the underwriting of your loan and the service that they're providing. So everything else is pretty much going to be very similar with any lender. You're going to have title and escrow, appraisal. Well, you've paid for your appraisal, and that's pretty standard too. You're going to have recording, going to have credit report.
Right. So when you're comparing numbers and you're looking, let's say you're looking at one lender's fees versus another lender's fees, it's just good to know that you should be looking at the interest rate and then their cost to do the loan, which is usually one fee. And the rest of it, if there's an origination fee or a discount, which is for the rate, those are all additional fees they're charging you. The third-party fees, title and escrow, those companies are determined by the contract. The agents will pick what company those are. And so all those fees are going to be the same no matter who you work with as a lender.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the next thing is prepaids. And I think that it's really important to talk about this because everyone thinks that's a cost of the loan. It is not a cost of the loan.
Yeah. And quite honestly, it's a way that a lender can actually present fees to make their fees seem better than they actually are. But at the end of the day, there are laws that dictate how many months of taxes, how many months of homeowners insurance have to be collected. And we don't control what taxes and insurance are. The county controls your property taxes, and you technically control your homeowner's insurance rate because you get to shop and choose who you want. So if they don't have the proper amount included in your front end estimate, it will be included when you close. So that will be a surprise. And we like to have good surprises instead of bad. So usually it'll be the same or less than what we quote. Right.
We're always going to overestimate. So those numbers are not a cost of the loan. They are the amounts collected to pay your taxes and insurance for you each month. Your escrow account, which I think it's kind of good to what is your escrow account? First-time home buyers don't really understand what that is. It's basically like the neutral third party that money transfers between. So during the contract, you're going to give your earnest money to escrow. They're going to hold the money there. When you sign and fund at the end of the transaction, we are going to send our money to escrow, and they're going to fund the loan. It's for the neutral third party. No money passes through the lender. So escrow. And it's also your escrow account on your mortgage statement. You'll see, usually it's on your statement. It'll show you how much you have in escrows, which will fluctuate each month. But that's the account they use to pay your taxes and insurance when they come due.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Exactly.
I did a good job on that.
You did really good. You know, it seems like you know everything about escrow.
Escrow, it does?
Yeah.
Oh.
One other thing that sometimes first-time home buyers, I get this a lot, is like, well, when will I be coming to your office to sign my documents?
Oh, yeah.
You do not come to our office. You go to escrow and sign your documents there. We send the loan documents, the final documents, to escrow. We balance the final CD with them, and that's where you sign your documents. So.
Right. Yes. So, okay. So now you understand all of your numbers, I hope. APR. We didn't touch on APR. So APR is really just another way for you to see the cost of the loan. The APR is the interest rate, which the interest rate is what your payment is associated with, the rate you're locked at. The APR is the interest rate plus the cost of the loan amortized over the life of the loan. So the APR is always going to be greater than your interest rate. If your rate's 3% and your APR is 5%, then there's a lot of costs there.
You need to call.
You need to call another lender. So
Yeah.
there's something going on. Really, it's always going to be a little bit higher, but it's just another way to see your cost over time.
It is. It's
Yeah.
sort of
Just
supposed to be a way to compare, but it is not the rate that you're actually paying on the money that you are borrowing.
Right. So, days of interest. That's a part of your prepaids. I always like to tell first-time home buyers this because I think this gets them excited. So when you pay rent, you pay the first of the month before you've lived there. But when you pay your mortgage, we pay in arrears. So if you bought a house in June, the month to buy a home right now, then your first mortgage payment, if you closed in June, wouldn't be until August.
Exactly.
So you don't have a payment in July.
That's so cool. You get to live in your new house, enjoy it for the whole month, and you don't even have to pay till after you've done all that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's exciting. But if you close in the middle of June, you're going to have interest for, close on the 15th, you're going to have 15 days of interest to the end of the month. If you close the end of June, you're going to have 1 day of interest. So
Right.
it just depends on your close date. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
right? So do you want to talk about appraisal again? Like, let's say now your appraisal comes back and your loan, let's say it comes in high. Okay. Comes
Let's
in
say
higher.
it does. Hey, Sarah, my appraisal came in like $20,000 high. Does that mean I can borrow $20,000 more now?
Oh my gosh, that's so fantastic. All that instant equity you have in your home. No, you still have to bring in the same amount.
Darn it. I thought that would cover my down payment.
I'm so sorry. But look you're already ahead of the game with all that equity.
That's awesome. Can I
Great.
do a cash out refinance?
Well, I guess you could 6 months after your loan closes. Well, really, the appraised value coming in high doesn't affect how much you borrow because the loan amount is based on the lower of the two, your purchase price or the appraised value.
Exactly. So we don't get to change the purchase price or the cash to close based on the appraisal, but it is really nice to have all that instant equity.
Right.
And we see that a fair amount, actually.
Yeah, and you
Coming
got a
in a
good
bit
deal.
high.
You had a good agent.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if it comes in low,
Yeah.
then what?
That's not so pretty. That's a little bit
Okay.
less fun.
So let's
actually.
try it. So,
But
hey, Patricia, I just got my appraisal and it looks like it came in $20,000 low. So is the seller going to pay that for me?
Well, this is where it gets a little tricky. And this is really where you want to have a seasoned agent. And if you need a good agent, go to www.financialfitnessnw.com and look at the agents that we've had on the show because they're quality people. But your agent is going to negotiate for you. There's a clause, and depending on how the appraisal is written up, really, it's kind of a conversation that you have with your agent before you actually sign your purchase and sale agreement, because you may have an escalation clause in there and you're saying you are actually going to pay the extra money if it comes in low. Mm-hmm. You may not have that in there. Then they need to go back to the seller and negotiate. Sometimes they'll meet in the middle.
It just
Sometimes
depends
they
on the
won't.
property, I
It
think.
does. Yeah.
We just had someone just yesterday, actually. They are under contract now, but they were willing to pay up to $20,000 in a low appraisal. So you can cap it. You can say, well, if the appraisal comes in low, I'm willing to pay $20,000. That happens often. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they're waiving appraisal and paying no matter what it is, but you have to feel really confident about what the value is going to come in at and have liquid assets to be able to cover the difference.
Not typically recommended for a first-time home buyer who may not be in a position to do that. You just want to, whatever your situation is, you just want to make sure that your agent is protecting you.
Right. So, okay, appraisal's in, we're good, and now your loan's in underwriting. What does that mean?
Well, what you've done prior to this point is you may have already gone through underwriting in some cases, but you would not have a property attached to that at that point. So when you go to underwriting after you're in contract, it is a final review with your collateral piece and your credit. Mm-hmm. And so what will happen is when the underwriter reviews everything with the property, they are going to come back with a final conditions list typically. So if your lender says that they need a few more things, don't be alarmed. You should expect that. Once your loan goes through underwriting, you're probably going to have some conditions to provide.
Yeah, and it should be minor because if your lender did a good job for you, they got the majority of your things up front. So it's usually just some minor explanations of things. And
usually minor. And if nothing, also you as the buyer, if you take responsibility and don't change anything with your situation. Don't go buy a car while you were shopping. Don't quit your job. Don't do any of those things. Typically, it's pretty easy.
Right. I mean, if you don't disclose that you had a $25,000 gift and then it shows up on your bank statement, well, then that's going to cause a lot of things on your conditions list.
Which is something that we just recently had.
So just know that it some of it does fall back on you a little bit. But if you are upfront and you provide all your documentation and your lender does a good job for you, it shouldn't be. Yeah, it shouldn't be too difficult.
It really, the more full disclosure you can be as a buyer with your lender, the easier it's going to be on you in the end, because
100%.
Any of those things are certainly, workable, but we just need to know up front so we can do the proper documentation
and make it less painless for you.
Yeah, we don't like to have any surprises at closing. So
nope. So then your CD, the CD goes out. That is your closing disclosure, which has your final numbers on it. We're gonna balance with escrow, send that out to you for you to acknowledge, and that once it is acknowledged, you can sign 3 days after receiving that.
Yeah, which is a beautiful thing. So for those of you that maybe have bought a house, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the closing disclosure has now replaced the good faith estimate and the truth in lending statement. Those two things are gone. It's now called a CD, or a closing disclosure. And it's something that in the past, when we had the HUD, you never saw that until you showed up at the table to sign. And in many cases, it was not what you had been told, which is sort of why the government stepped in and came up with these new regulations and forms. So now you see your final closing disclosure 3 days before you actually sign your loan document. So if you have any questions, reach out to your lender, and they should be able to tell you very easily what that is.
Right. And then it alleviates scrambling at the end, because you have time to set up your wire for your money for closing, right? Mm-hmm. And you're prepared when you go in to sign. And then your loan documents are sent to escrow, like we discussed earlier, and that's where you'll go in and sign your final documents. Most cases, you're going to sign at least a day before closing, your actual close date. So if you're closing June 30th, you'd sign the 29th. You'd go into escrow and sign. They send the documents back to the lender to review. Everything looks good. And then the following day, we would fund the loan.
And if you're working with Caliber Home Loans in the very near future, you won't even have to go in and sign, because we can sign electronically. So it's going to be, our whole digital mortgage process is going to be so awesome.
It's going to be slick, especially for all you techies who travel all the time.
Yep.
Don't have to worry about it. So, and then your loan's funded and you get the keys. You're a homeowner.
Yep. It's always good. You usually get the keys in the afternoon, so it's good not to plan to move in the day that you're closing. Maybe the day after.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
Always handy.
Go celebrate that night, and then the next day, pay someone to move you.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. So thank you guys so much for tuning into Financial Fitness Northwest. We're going to have a quick break. When we come back, we're going to just discuss what homeowners are willing to sacrifice to save for their next home.